We take in things from our environment, air, water, food, and other things that we don't always intend to put into our body. And then we metabolize those things, and there are waste products of metabolism. Even if you eat pure, clean, healthy foods, there are waste products from metabolism, and our body needs to get rid of those toxins.
All right, welcome to the Healing Reset. You guys, we're a health podcast aimed at providing hope in your body's ability to heal and maintain that health. Contrary to today's belief, what you're told every single day by the media, by sometimes your own physicians, you're incredible. Contrary to what you're told, you are incredible. You are designed to heal. You're designed to maintain that health. Today, we're going to talk about one of the ways and how you can do that. We have on a family physician, Dr. Green. He specializes in combining conventional medicine with natural, nutritional, and herbal therapies. It's about as integrative as you can get. He's here today to talk to us about detox and why that's pertinent for your health and some simple ways that you should be thinking around detox. Thanks for being on this podcast, Dr. Green.
This is a topic that is very important to all of us, and it takes up much of my day as a physician dealing with issues about toxicity and detoxification, because you can almost boil down most illnesses as an accumulation of toxins in tissues, and failure for our body to eliminate those toxins eventually leads to diseases.
I was curious what detoxification actually meant, because we hear this as a buzzword these days. So just quick Google dictionary search, what's detoxification? And it's defined as the removal of toxic substances or qualities, which got me thinking of, man, this is such a big topic, because let's look at our environment. Let's look at what we put on our bodies, what's in our homes, what we consume food-wise, what we consume relationship-wise. Detoxification has such a big application. Today, we're going to be talking really about detoxing from our body, not necessarily the emotional detox. But what does detox mean to you, and why is it so crucial?
When you think about our anatomy, we have liver and kidneys and colon and skin and lungs. And these are all important organs of elimination. We take in things from our environment, air, water, food, and other things that we don't always intend to put into our body. And then we metabolize those things, and there are waste products of metabolism. Even if you eat pure, clean, healthy foods, there are waste products from metabolism, and our body needs to get rid of those toxins.
So when you mentioned the liver and the kidneys and the skin and the lungs, that's talking about our body's natural ways that it's just like detoxing in the background for us constantly.
All living things have to detoxify. Single cell organisms create toxins in their metabolism and need to get rid of toxins. It is a part of life. Even before the modern age with all these chemicals, just taking food in, metabolizing it, we have waste. Carbon dioxide is a waste product, and we have to exhale that out through our lungs. So it's a natural process of all living things to get rid of toxins.
Where does the system go wrong? So where does it break down this, and someone can accumulate toxicity or not get the toxic burden out fast enough? Where does the system break in a human body?
A lot of it has to do with how much toxins we have in us at any time. There's this concept we call total toxic load. And all of us have a certain amount of toxins in us, but all of us, because of our unique sensitivities and our genetics, some people, low levels of toxic accumulation can tip them over into symptoms. There are some people who can be extremely high in toxins and feel fine, but it all has to do with our unique genetic diversity and the weaknesses in our tissues. About then is when we're going to be developing symptoms and illness.
So who does this conversation apply to? Is it a subset of population that's not feeling well? Is this someone who is 20 and just rocking life, feeling great. Who does this apply to?
Everyone. From the time you're born until the time you die, it's everyone, because children can get sick and teenagers get sick. And it's not just, you don't even have to be diagnosed with an illness. If you're feeling tired, if your joints are sore, if you have brain fog, if you're not sleeping well, these could all be symptoms of accumulation of toxins in our system. And the toxins we accumulate now are going to affect our health, could be for the rest of our life, because many of them get stuck. And unless you push them out, unless you treat them out, they will continue to accumulate. Our body does a good job at letting toxins go, but sometimes it doesn't do it well enough to keep the total toxic load below the level of symptoms.
So I have a 2-year-old, and recently she had a fever. She was sick. And in my mind, I just want you to affirm this or tell me that this is wrong. In my mind, that fever is burning her up to get out some of that toxicity because her body needed to get something out and then bring her back to health. Is that kind of one way that people don't think about that our bodies do work for us?
What you've just described is sort of what we know as the homeopathic theory of medicine. In homeopathy, we say that symptoms are the way the body tries to detoxify. That is what our body does. It's the wisdom of healing, but it can cause symptoms. And symptoms, sometimes we need that fever. The fever does help to make bacteria and viruses replicate more slowly. But if the fever goes too high, then it can cause seizures in children. So you have to have control of these processes for it to be working properly and adequately.
When I was reading up on your bio and just your history, that was one of the things that really stuck out to me is you're not just in one camp. Your foot's not just in herbal therapies. It is like, I'm a conventional doctor who is combining all of these things and treating a person from the root cause. And so with that being said, how does conventional medicine input detoxification as part of their treatment protocols, the norm versus how you do?
Well, when I think back in my medical education, back in medical school and during my residency, it was woefully depleted of education on this topic, other than making sure your bowels are moving well and that, your lungs are functioning right. There was really very little knowledge that I was taught.
Can I just say, conventionally, they say like every 3 days for a bowel movement is acceptable.
Yeah,
And that's really not. Can you give some feedback on that? I mean, that's kind of something to think through.
Yeah, at least once or even 2 to 3 times a day, it would be more optimum. Our colon is full of not just the waste products, which are there. We also have bacteria there. And when you have sluggish colons, the makeup of the flora changes, and you can start getting overgrowth of bacteria when you're not eliminating properly. And that's a problem too. There's something called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO.
SIBO.
Yeah, that can happen if you're not moving things through your colon in a timely fashion.
Guys, so many pathways to detox. So sorry, Dr. Green, I had cut in there. Back to the original question. What does conventional medicine do for detox protocols versus what your office might look into?
I can't remember when I was trained about detox practices in conventional medicine. And when I think about the time you read about detox in conventional medicine is like, drug rehabs where they're trying to get you off of drugs or addictions and that kind of thing, which, that is a part of detox. But the idea of optimizing our health, not just treating disease, but keeping ourselves healthy and preventing disease through detoxification is really not something that is a topic in most circles of conventional Western medicine.
How do you feel about the supplement aisles with detox written all over the labels? How do you feel about that marketing when someone's like, oh, I need a cleanse, I need a detox. I'm going to go to my local store, find the first thing that says detox and take a bunch of pills? cleanse for a couple days and then call it good.
When people say, well, I'm going to do a colon cleanse, well, that's like going into, it's like if you're cleaning your home, are you just going to clean one room? Or you're not going to clean the whole house? And there are many different ways of cleansing different organs and tissues in the body. And that's something that I prescribe a lot for my patients. There's actually this 28-day comprehensive cleanse program that I have been doing personally for the last, I count 27 years in a row. I take a month and I do my cleanse. I haven't skipped a year. And it's a phased program where you start with the most toxic organ in the body, the colon, and then you go to the liver and the kidneys, the blood and lymphatics and skin. And there's different things that I recommend for each of those in a certain order. And it's something that if you're going to go through a cleanse, do the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd love to get to that if you're willing to give some information out to our listeners. But first, I have probably my biggest question. How do we avoid, we need to detox. As you said, this is for everybody. But how do we avoid getting ourselves into a place to need to detox? Does that make sense?
I spend so much of my time with my patients telling them ways to avoid getting exposed to toxins. We get exposed to them so in our food, in our water, in our homes, in our furniture, in our clothing, in our skin and hair care products, in our cleaning products, the things, the paints we put in on our walls, building materials. We get exposed to all these things, and there's choices we can make to minimize, those kinds of toxins. There's cleaner choices. There are many different websites. I can't think of the name right off the top of my head right now, but it's easy to find cleaning products and skin and hair care products that don't put in all of these artificial toxic ingredients that we should all follow. We need to be drinking purified water. People who drink in most major cities, if you're drinking tap water and not having it significantly filtered or with reverse osmosis, then you're taking in toxins with your water. And plastic bottled water, you're getting the plastics are leaching chemicals in the water. I have a long list of things I recommend my patients do.
There was something you had said earlier, and I just want to put this out there to the listeners. I had made my own glass cleaner, totally doable. I've made my own, and now I use vinegar. That smell does bother some people. All-purpose, multi-purpose cleaner, totally doable. There are some simple switches that aren't expensive. Now, one that just got me recently was we moved our toddler into a big girl bed, and I wanted to get a mattress that was a little bit less toxic. I don't know if you can completely get rid of this stuff unless we're sleeping on a dirt floor, but that one felt like it was a little bit more of a bite the bullet in expense. But there's so many switches that we just do because maybe, I grew up in a house that used Windex, so I use Windex. And then I started asking the question, why is it blue? What makes it blue? Guys, what makes these things blue? What makes blue M&Ms blue? Well, you can look because there's ingredients and you can figure it out pretty quick and realize that there are cost-effective swaps. And so a lot of this, Dr. Green's just saying of let's start analyzing our day-to-days and seeing where those swaps can even what don't we realize need to be swapped out yet?
But a lot of the products we use in our home, be it for cleaning or for dishes or soaps, they're fragranced. And for the most part, many of those fragrances are pretty toxic.
Well, it's like thousands of ingredients can fall under the umbrella of the word fragrance, right?
Many of the most commonly used perfumes and colognes in that industry are waste products of the insecticide industry. They're extremely powerful. Imagine you put a tiny little drop of this liquid on your fingertip and you rub it on your skin, and the whole room and your whole office might smell for 6 hours. What kind of chemicals do that? Those are powerful, powerful and toxic chemicals.
One of my best friends was telling me a story, and she was like, my perfume bottle spilled on my dresser and it ate a hole in my dresser. And I was wearing perfume at this point. I've had a transition, guys. It's not perfect still, but I've had a big wake up call over the last probably 7 years, 10 years. And it was just like, why am I putting that on my skin? It ate a hole in a wood dresser. Find an alternative perfume on the back of our laundry detergent that I thought was clean. I've been trying a couple of different things. It said, we do 7 ingredients, and it listed those 7 out. And one of them was fragrance. And it was like, you do not do 7 ingredients. You do a lot more than 7. One just can fall under this term.
If you spill a little bit of Coca-Cola on your car, it will dissolve the paint off the car.
Listeners, not to put this out there if you're Coca-Cola avid drinkers, but listen to that fact. That inside your stomach, inside your body is probably something that we need to detox from. This conversation might be especially for, all of us.
It's acid that dissolves the paint, and then your body has to buffer that acid. And so it uses up its alkaline buffers. Your kidneys then have to excrete it out. Your bones are one of the calcium buffers that's used. People who drink a lot of Coke and Pepsi, they are a very high risk for developing osteoporosis.
That makes sense when you put it like that. What are other simple things that you talk to your patients about that our listeners might be like, or me?
There's the basics. There's food and water. Because that's where we can get a lot of toxins in us. You have to drink clean water.
Best opinions on filters?
Well, there's different kinds of filters. The reverse osmosis is probably the purest water that you can get. But the water that comes out of a reverse osmosis filter is even devoid of all minerals.
Yeah, you need to remineralize it.
So you need to remineralize it. And I keep right by my kitchen sink where I have my reverse osmosis unit, I have a little bottle of liquid drops of trace minerals. And I put 3 or 4 drops in my glass every time I pour water. But, in my home, I live in a home where I can control the water that comes into the house. And just outside where the water main is in my house, I have a huge charcoal filter so that all of the water in the house that you bathe and shower and wash dishes with has been pretty well cleaned. It's not as clean as reverse osmosis. But for people who don't have that control, they're like, for showering example, there are these shower heads that have charcoal filters in them, and you can screw them on to almost any shower head. And, at least the water that or the hot water that you're putting on your body can have some of those toxins removed. The food should be organic. As much as possible, try to get organic food, because so much pesticide and herbicide and Roundup and these chemicals that we get exposed to in our food. Grass-fed. If you're not a vegetarian, if you're eating animal, or you should be having grass-fed and not grain-fed animal products. In your home, be really judicious about what chemicals you use for cleaning your dishes. Laundry detergents, fabric softener. Most people don't realize fabric softener is very toxic. And the cling-free and the little things you throw in the dryer, not only are they heavily fragranced with toxic chemicals, but those that soften the fabric are also very toxic. There's alternatives to a bunch of these things.
One of those alternatives from fabric softeners that I went to is just those wool balls. So I just throw a couple of wool balls in our dryer, and it kind of helps, work things out and make them not cling.
Yeah. And there is actually something called borax. I remember when I was younger, the old commercials, borax, which is from boron, actually is a relatively safe fabric softener. But most people don't use it.
Yeah, I use that to do some homemade laundry detergent at one point. So I've got a box of borax sitting in our laundry room. But again, there's so many swaps. One thing that comes to mind while we're on this topic is the fragrance plugins.
Oh,
so the fragrance
started.
sprays, in that being a household that doesn't use a lot of fragrance, it's overwhelming to me. But that is just like toxicity in your face.
Yeah. I don't get it. This culture where we have to fragrance everything and the car fresheners that, those Christmas tree things you hang in your
Another
car.
thing I never
They are
realized.
so toxic. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that.
All right, this is a podcast. Someone's driving around right now with one of those dangling off their rearview mirror. And I just challenge you to pull it off. Just take it off.
I have gotten into Ubers and Lyft cars that I've opened the door and I just said, I can't get in this car.
Yeah, it's
They're
too much.
so intense with
Head
the
out the window
smell.
like a dog. Yeah. I guess so. We just went through quite a lot of things, and some of them might be no brainers for our listeners out there. Some of them might bring some light bulbs, but let's say someone is really struggling in the detoxification. How does that come out? What does that look like from symptomology? I'm assuming since we always talk about we're so different, our fingerprints are different. We all have different genetics. I'm assuming it's different, but can you give a couple examples of what someone with a toxic buildup or their cells aren't detoxifying properly? What do they look like? How are they feeling?
I would say fatigue is probably one of the most common symptoms. Brain fog is another one, not thinking clearly, for being forgetful. And sometimes, anxiety and insomnia can be a symptom of toxicity. Joint aches and pains and muscle aches and pains, weakness, not feeling as strong as you would normally feel. Headaches often are related to toxicity.
One thing I didn't think about talking about was medications, detoxing from some of the medications.
Sure. And, even some natural nutraceuticals, we call them, using nutrients as medicines. Some people, they can be allergic to them. Too much vitamin D can be harmful. There's certain hypervitaminosis if you take too much of certain nutrients. So, everything. If you drink too much water, that's not good. If you over dilute your body with too much water, and that doesn't happen too often, but it's an example of even something good like water can be toxic if there's too much.
Yeah, I've been there before. I was drinking a gallon a day, and my functional medicine doctor was like, maybe you should slow that, right? Like I was having some weird symptoms. Maybe it's the water intake. It was just like, no way. Hydrate yourselves still, people. I think as Americans, we lie on the side of not drinking enough, but be conscious. Like there is such a thing as moderation. Now, I think that should bring us to the section where we just get to how do we detox? What is Dr. Green's simple playbook? What can people do at home? What can people do in a clinic such as yours to start getting this out or getting their body moving things out?
One of the things I have a home sauna. An infrared sauna is a way to help your skin to eliminate toxins.
Now, does it have to be infrared? Because there's so many different sauna variations.
Well, yes, there are. The infrared is supposed to be good for getting certain toxins out more than just heat. But, you can get these little home saunas where it's like a tent and you zip it up and your head sticks out. And those can fold up and fit into a box this big in your closet when you're not using it.
I totally think people look like a turtle with those, and I definitely want one. Super convenient.
I have one at home.
Super affordable. I put it on my Christmas list last year. We didn't get it, but that will be something our house gets just because the sweat, the ability to get sweat out, and I laugh about the turtle thing, but I want one. And you can read a book, right? Your hands can pop out so you can just sit in a sauna and read a book while your body does what it's meant to do. Get that stuff out.
So, let's start with, again, the colon is probably one of the most toxic organs in the body. Keep your bowels moving in a regular way, daily, once or twice a day at least. And eating fiber, soluble fiber in particular, food. There are many foods high in soluble fiber. They tend to hold on to toxins too.
Give listeners just a few. What's soluble fiber? Give them a few.
Soluble fiber foods would be beans, apples. There's soluble fiber in avocados.
There we
broccoli.
go, people.
Yeah, there are food lists that list, how many grams of carbohydrate and protein and fat and fiber. And they might even show you whether it's soluble or insoluble fiber. And, the higher the grams of fiber and soluble fiber, and especially in those foods, pick those foods if you like them, eat more of them in your diet.
So we're getting stuff out through the skin, through sauna, which I think it's also important to shower after that, right? So your body doesn't just reabsorb it. And then we're moving on colon.
Well, baths also. I recommend baths. The only problem is, again, the water where your city water is coming from. But like in my home, I get filtered water into my baths and showers. But if you fill up a bathtub and put a couple cups of baking soda and a cup of Epsom salts and soak in that helps to facilitate detox through your skin.
Huh. Okay. That's a good tip. I've never heard that
one more thing with your skin, do dry body brushing.
Okay.
Or in the shower, when you do shower or bathe, get a brush or a sponge that's very rough if your skin tolerates it, and really rough up your skin. We eliminate a lot of toxins through our skin, and the saunas and steam or baths and the dry body brushing is a good way of polishing the skin and getting those toxins off of us.
Gosh, I love learning things on this show. All right. So we've talked about skin, colon. What's next in your playbook?
Liver. There are foods that are high in those nutrients that the liver uses to bind to toxins so that then they can be more easily excreted out of the body. They get put into the bile. The bile goes into the intestines, and then we excrete it out that way. Or these metabolites of toxins then go back into the blood where the kidneys can filter it out, or the skin can then filter it out. Now, a lot of people know about milk thistle. That's pretty well understood nutrient that or herb that helps the liver. But there are asparagus, dandelion greens, cilantro. Gosh, there's such a long list of food. Beets.
All support and nourish the liver.
Yeah, and other organs too. And they all have other health benefits as well. And, it's not just for the liver, but they do supply the liver. Now, there are a number of very commonly used supplements that we take that also aid your liver. Glutathione, NAC, and also known as N-acetylcysteine, alpha-lipoic acid, glycine. Many of these amino acids, your liver binds those amino acids to the toxins. Then the toxin, first of all, becomes less toxic when it's bound to those nutrients. And then also the body is more able to get rid of those toxins more easily once they've been metabolized by the liver.
Mm-hmm. So again, like just hearing you talk about some foods, it's like, let's be conscious of the food we're putting in our body to prevent a toxic buildup. But then let's use this food, the same food as medicine, to help aid in the process of detoxification.
There's some good herbal teas that put a lot of those herbs together, and some of them can be quite tasty. So you can drink, you get your fluid that way, you get the extra good water, and then you're getting these herb extracts that will aid in detox.
Okay. Anything else in your playbook? Then
there's the kidney. One of the herbs that's interesting that we know is good for helping the kidney to detoxify is, besides foods like asparagus, it is juniper berry, the berry that's used to make gin.
I was just going to say, I only know this because gin.
Yeah, well, it helps the kidneys to detoxify. And part of that 28-day cleanse that I do during the kidney week, there's this tea that has about 8 or 10 herbs, including juniper berry, that I drink during the kidney phase of the detox.
So your specific cleanse, is this something that you built? It's a Dr. Green play-by-play, week-by-week cleanse, or is this something that someone can find on that shelf at their grocery store?
Actually, this program that I have been doing myself and have been recommending for my patients, I've been doing it for 27 years. I started this, and it's evolved over the years as I learn and find out different things. It has been tweaked. And what I've done is I've taken certain things from different programs of detox and kind of integrated it. I'm an integrative doctor. I tend to
integrative at heart.
And so that's how this program came to be. And I have it down. I mean, I look forward to my detox every year because I always feel so good. I always do it right after the holidays. For me, December is a month where I kind of break a lot of rules and I probably eat more
Mhm.
things I don't usually do. And I am so ready after New Year's. This year, I was really ready for it.
So is that something you'd be willing to provide listeners? Could we attach that as a PDF, or is that something on your website where we can direct them to Dr. Green's
Yeah,
28 day?
I mean, I have it as a 3-page handout that I give for my to my patients. Some of the products that are in that are unique products that I have formulated, and they're not, you couldn't necessarily buy them at a health food store. Some of them you could, but some of them you can't. But it is, I do have it, part of it is a gallbladder flush. I didn't get to that, a liver gallbladder flush. You do that every morning during the liver phase.
Hey, I know quite a few women in particular who have had their gallbladders removed. So gallbladder really does play a role in detoxification.
Yeah, well, you can still do the liver flush part of it still happens too. I still think it's good.
I was just thinking in terms of like, that's a newer, maybe not a newer thing, but like all of a sudden these women's gallbladders, generally after children, from at least the people in my life, go rogue.
Yeah, well, bile, which is stored in the gallbladder, can crystallize and form these stones or sludge. And if the sludge gets too thick, it accumulates in the gallbladder, and the gallbladder, when it squeezes, can't empty it. And if it doesn't empty regularly, then it accumulates these toxins. Bile serves many functions, but part of what bile is the way the liver excretes toxins into the bile, so that the bile then goes into the intestines and then it's excreted out through bowel movements. The bile is part of the detox process, but gallbladders can get diseased and they get inflamed or they can get infected, and it makes them not function properly, and they get stones. A lot of things can happen to the gallbladder.
Yeah. So we're cleaning the whole house though. In 28 days, we're cleaning the whole house once a year. Is that a recommendation you would just blanket to everyone?
I'm knocking on the wooden table I'm on right now that I enjoy good health, and I do believe, that it's part of my good health is my detox program that I do every year. And some years I do it twice a year. In the summer, if I'm in the mood, I feel like my body's feeling sluggish, and I'll do another detox again.
All right. My ask, can you provide us with that 3-page handout so we can have access to Dr. Green's awesome detox?
When we're done this podcast, I can arrange to email you that cleanse.
And those products that are formulated by you, I assume go out to your patients. Is that something that listeners could have access to and purchase through a website?
Yeah, well, through my website. Yeah. It's the 28-day, total body cleanse, it's called.
We'll attach that in the show notes too, just so people can have access. Dr. Green, this is one of my favorite conversations because I think it just has such a good application. Anyone
It's
listening
for
to this,
everybody. It's for
yep.
everybody.
I've been thinking through it. It's like I think through it in terms of my children. I think through it in terms of my husband and what I consume. Yeah, I really want listeners to hopefully feel the same passion I do in terms of making small tweaks. We're not asking you to change your life tomorrow. It doesn't work like that, but small tweaks to maintain better health. But with that, give listeners 3 things they can walk away with tomorrow to just do exactly that. Get better health. Simple things someone can just take away right now and put in their lives.
Okay. Be choosy with the foods you eat. If the more you eat foods that are in a package that have a list of ingredients that are pre-prepared, that have been sitting on a shelf or in a can, or then the less healthy that food will be, and the more likely there might be toxins. Pick organic, fresh foods. Cook your own food. Eat fresh fruits and vegetables and whole grains, seeds, nuts, and beans, and choose organic, free range animal products and wild caught fish and things like that. The smaller the fish, the better, because they have less toxins than the bigger the fish that accumulate toxins just like we do. The other thing is also be very choosy about what you put on your body with the soaps and shampoos that you use. Avoid sodium lauryl sulfate. Many of the detergents that are in our skincare products and shampoos. Try not to use all of these weird fragrances that are everywhere today, and every spray and every cleaning product. It's like, what's that about? Why do we have to odorize our environment?
I don't know. I used to be there and I don't know.
Yeah, minimize our exposure and also keep well hydrated. Your kidneys filter a lot of toxins out. Make sure your bowels are moving regularly, because those are two very important organs of elimination.
Be choosy about your foods. Be choosy about what you interact with in your body, and hydrate yourself. Put water in. That's not Gatorade. What color makes Gatorade? I don't know. Check it out.
I know. There's like these weird fluorescent colors. I can't believe people choose to put that in their body.
I know. My daughter was looking at one the other day, and I just wanted to be like, no. All right, Dr. Green, thank you for being with us today. We just appreciate your wisdom and your integrative practice. I mean, thank you for taking conventional and trying to transition it to something that looks at us as an individual. It's awesome.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Statements and views expressed in this podcast are not medical advice and have not been evaluated by the FDA. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse nor accept responsibility for statements made by guests.